Hi, I'm Dijkstra. I'm the editor of the Cohesion Report. Why do we publish a Cohesion Report? We publish a Cohesion Report every 3 years because it's a treaty requirement. We have to answer 3 main questions. How has economic, social and territorial cohesion changed in Europe? And there we look especially at the disparities between regions and areas inside the EU. The second question is, how have national policies affected cohesion? Have they helped to reduce disparities between the less developed and more developed regions or not? And the last question is, what has been the impact of EU policies on cohesion, and in particular, cohesion policy? So what does the report tell us today? Cohesion since the crisis has really deteriorated. Differences in unemployment and employment rates between regions grew dramatically. But now, as we're entering the recovery and GDP has recovered, these disparities are shrinking again and GDP and employment in the EU is at an all-time high. Looking at national policies, however, we still see very low levels of public investment. The crisis led to big budget deficits, which forced member states to reduce their expenditure, and they did that primarily by reducing investment. This puts the long-term convergence path at risk. So we want to see more investment, especially in the less developed member states. Cohesion policy is on track. It's investing, supporting projects, improving quality of life and the competitiveness of SMEs. But as with the previous period, we still see that implementation is not particularly fast. And looking towards the future, we want to find solutions to make sure that cohesion policy programs can be implemented more rapidly to help the regions and cities as they need. The Cohesion Report comes before the multi-annual financial framework. This is the EU's budget proposal for the next 7 years. Because the Cohesion Report is before, we cannot make specific proposals on how much we want to invest where. Nevertheless, the Cohesion Report asks 3 key questions about the future. Where should cohesion policy invest? What should it invest in? And how should it invest? The question about where is the eternal question of whether cohesion policy should be purely focused on less developed regions and border regions, or whether it should also invest in other regions, as it has done in the 2 past programming periods. The reflection papers and the EU White Paper on the Future of Europe identify a number of priorities and challenges facing many EU regions, like migration, globalization, renewable energy, and climate change. As these are not limited to less developed regions, the report suggests that investing in all regions should be an option to consider. What should we invest in? Already, cohesion policy invests in a wide variety of areas, such as helping SMEs, reducing poverty, providing training, improving transport, improving the environment. The key question is, how do we want to change that shift, that balance, that mix for the future, or whether we want to maintain it? Several voices have argued that we should consider more investments in the EU priorities, definitely given the big challenges ahead of shifting to a low-carbon economy and addressing further migration and globalization. On how the policy should invest, we have discussed ways of making it simpler and making it faster. We also want to look at ways on how we can provide positive incentives for structural reforms to allow your economy to grow and people's quality of life to improve. And last but not least, we want to think about an additional flexibility, maybe an unallocated amount of funding not dedicated to a member state or a problem that can address crises as they emerge. Take, for example, the refugee crisis, where cohesion policy had to reprogram the programs to allow to address those issues. An unallocated capacity would allow us to respond even faster.